Welcome to the Fit Talks, and I am very, very excited to be with Tom Ziglar, who is the CEO of the Ziglar Corporation. It's a worldwide brand, and if you haven't heard of the Ziglar name, then I don't know what you've been doing in business or even in life. It's incredible to get a chance to talk to a legend and more importantly, a CEO of a worldwide brand. Tom is actually an author of two books, and I'm very, very excited to have him on. So, Tom, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bill, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
It's my pleasure. The honor's all mine, actually. And I know that we're gonna have a long discussion about several topics, but I always want to start with the leadership one, which is obviously your bread and butter. It was your father's bread and butter, and it's the Ziglar Corporation's kind of main thing is of leadership development, and personal development. So I have a quick question for you. What is something maybe that you believed about leadership when you were younger and that you no longer believe anymore? So I just was curious to hear your thoughts on that.
You know, when you're growing up and you see the images of a leader, right? It's a lot of times it's a general on TV just barking orders. But when you meet the CEOs and the people who've walked out leadership their whole life, even in the military, it's about relationship. And so you think that it's, hey, this is how we're going to do it, very directive, command and control, because that's the image that we paint. But when you get behind the scenes, it's leaders really care about their people. And the reason they have so much loyalty and respect and admiration from the people in their organization is because that leader oftentimes has gone to bat for them individually along the way. And so that was a shift that was maybe a little surprising, but it definitely very gratifying to see that, to see that the portrayal versus what great leaders really do are two different things.
It's and being a CEO, obviously, of your organization, many people, they may not lead organizations, but they lead themselves, they lead their families. They even maybe have a small group in their church, or they have a small community thing that they're doing. So leadership applies to everything, especially when you're trying to raise kids. Leadership is everything. So I really appreciate that comment. And so speaking of the comment, doesn't surprise me that would come from you, because your father famously said, "You don't build businesses, you build people, and people build businesses." So I was wondering, how has that philosophy evolved in your leadership style and your leadership journey?
Yeah, well, we've created a leadership program, which we call the Ziglar Coach Leadership. And so we really do it from a coaching mindset and perspective. I think if you ask the average person on the street, do you want to be asked what you should do or what to do, or do you want to be told what to do? Most people they prefer to be asked. And if I give a directive and say, this is what you're going to do and this is how you're going to do it, buy-in is very low. But if I ask questions that are centered around what that person's objective or why or, personal goal or dream is, and you ask them those clarifying questions, and then you say, would you like some help getting there faster? Almost everybody's going to say yes to that, right? Because now,
That's right.
Now you're in alignment. And then you start asking more questions, and they all of a sudden create their own plan with your help and your nudging. And then you can simply say, is it okay if I hold you accountable to your plan? And who says no to that? And so when I think of leadership and how we look at it differently, yeah, you gotta build the people. And in our view, results are very important, but growth is even more important. So a great leader focuses on growth first and results. Not growth instead of results or no results at all, but it's like if you are becoming a more capable person every single day, I want you on my team. The results are going to come, right?
Yeah. I love the fact that leadership usually associates with some type of power, control, or influence. But growth actually stunts all that, because that's the trump card to having people grow and become something different. Yes, I think I've heard this from your dad, actually says when you change, everything around you changes, And when you get better, everything around you gets better. So, and that's a growth moment right there for sure.
Absolutely. 100%.
So as you've developed people in leadership and obviously in your company and others, many of them come to you for advice. So what are some of the common maybe blind spots that you see in young entrepreneurs when it comes down to business and sustaining a business or building a business?
Yeah, there are the things that are always going to be there, and then there are things that are unique to the time that we're in, right? Because it's always changing. And I heard a quote today, and it said, "We are living today in the least disruptive time we're ever going to live in," meaning that tomorrow is going to be more disruptive than today is, right?
Yeah.
And so and disruption, that's the speed of disruption, it's happening with more frequency and more intensity. And of course, at every level in every industry, AI is coming in and having a huge impact. And so there are the things that are changing that as leaders we've got to embrace and put our arms around, that are signs of the times. And then there are the things that never change, love and integrity and trust. Those things never change. And so how do we bridge that gap? So young leaders are really trying to figure out how to grow and be effective, and they're getting hit from both sides constantly. Hey, things are always changing. Run here, do this, go over here. Oh, you don't have to worry about that. AI is going to do that for you. And so if they lean too far that way, they lose all their relationships. But if they do only relationships, which is fantastic, and they don't figure out how to leverage AI and technology and the new things, then they're not developing as deep or as many relationships as they could. And that's not a good thing either. And so a leadership mindset is understanding that if I'm humble and that things are going to change and I start to embrace these things, and my North Star is, will it help me serve my people and my customer better? If that's how I make the decision, then I'm all in. I never violate the values and the virtues, but I can use these tools to help me be better. And so that's the big thing. It's the dance, it's that, do I have what it takes? That's what everybody wonders. And if I go into leadership, can I make a living doing this, right? And then will I be relevant? Because I just saw a LinkedIn report that said that the bottom the bottom rung of the career ladder is gone because big companies are using AI to do that work.
Yeah.
And then Amazon just made an announcement where they've got robots in the distribution center. They've got self-driving trucks, and they're going to have robots take the package from the truck to the house.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going to happen? Well, leadership has got to get our arms around this and help people understand the value they have that can never be replaced in this time. So that's the challenge for today. But the old school relationships built on integrity and trust, that never changes.
No, it's so true. As I'm diving into AI and seeing how that affects my business, how it affects my life, I realize that AI is very good at getting us information and spitting back words that you can use to construct things better, whether it be emails, texts, etc. But what I realize that it doesn't do is it asks the questions about the idiosyncrasies of people, because that's really where relationships are formed, is based on, what's valuable to you, what's valuable to me, how do we interact, how do we connect. And I totally agree with what you're saying, based on leadership and how you develop companies and organizations, enterprises, so to speak.
Yeah, in that regard, when we're working with leaders, and they bring up the subject of AI, there's three things that AI will never be able to do. They'll never be able to build a relationship. I mean, AI, it'll never have wisdom, right? Because it has a lot of knowledge, but wisdom is around values and virtues and different things. And those are key. But here's maybe the biggest one, is AI will never believe in you, right? And think about it. Think about the turning points in your own career. You can probably point back to a leader or a coach or a mentor who said, I think if you just did this, you could go to a level you can't even imagine. And because you believed them, you took the step. And then all these doors opened up and your success took off and all that. Well, you've put a prompt into AI and it'll say, "Oh, what a great question. You're so smart," right? Do you believe it?
Yeah, right. Right.
No, you don't believe it. But when a leader tells you that, somebody you respect tells you that, it's a whole different game. And so that's the key. And so as leaders, we're building relationships. It's on the foundation of integrity and trust and wisdom. But it's really that transfer of confidence and belief in our people that helps them go beyond what they think they can do. Because we've all done more than we thought we could because somebody believed we could do more than we thought we could.
So true. I've heard actually from another wise entrepreneurial coach says that a leader in sales is to protect the confidence of their salespeople. And as you take that one step further, just what you were talking about, how do you do those things that you just described in a digital format, in a digital world? There's very few times that we're person to person. Just like you're in your office in Atlanta, I'm in my podcast room here in Tampa, and yet we're able to interact almost as if we're in person. However, that dynamic of body language and all those other things sometimes is lost, and the feel of the environment is sometimes lost. So how does that translate into this new workplace?
Yeah. So when you say in the digital world, you meaning a Zoom call, or you meaning?
Yeah, Zoom, and well, everybody's remote. There's nobody's going into offices now. There's a lack of physical contact. That's what I'm talking.
Yeah. So in the book that I wrote called 10 Leadership Virtues for Disruptive Times, one of the things I really studied was what happened in the pandemic and the work from home and remote work and hybrid work and all these different things. And I kind of nerded out on it and read every report around it for 2 years. And, we've got Jamie Dimon who says, no, everybody needs to come into the office. And then you got other people say, no, people are much more happier and effective working from home. And the truth is that there are circumstances where both are right.
Right.
But here's the reality. It's a different skill set that a leader needs to learn in order to effectively grow and develop people who are primarily remote.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a bias around geography. If we're sitting in the same room with somebody 3 days a week and an idea comes up, who do we share the idea with? We go to the person in the office next to us or the cube next to us.
Right.
And so you've got a little bit more bias towards that individual for opportunity than somebody who is on your team and you're meeting with them once a week. And so how does a leader overcome that? Well, you overcome it by learning the skills that create relationship and trust face to face or through a Zoom call. And it's really by the questions that you ask, right? And then you're intentional about it. If you have a West Coast company and you call your impromptu team meeting at 4 p.m. Pacific time, your East Coast people are going to miss it.
Right.
Right. So you've just got to plan in advance. But I think the reality is that remote allows you on average to attract a higher quality of person because you're not bound by a geographic area, but it takes a different level of leadership ability to lead that group. And this is what we know, and this is what the results tell us. Companies that are 100% remote or people who are 100% on location companies, they have an easier time than the hybrids.
Sure.
Right? So if
more skills involved.
Yeah. So if you're doing a hybrid, you get the best of both worlds, but you got to raise your game even more. And then there are certain age groups and personalities and industries that don't lend well to the hybrid, right? To a lot of Zoom. So you've got to take that into account. I love it. I love working from home. Our whole team works from home. But when we bring people in, it's like, man, I can't believe we waited so long to get together, right? It's just different.
That's so true.
You can do that. You can raise your leadership skill to do that. And it's really around a clarity on your purpose and your why, the intention of the questions that you ask, and how frequent you are meeting with people. it takes a lot more courage in a Google Doc or to raise your hand and say, I don't know the answer to that, right?
Right.
Because it's saved into eternity. And so I think Patrick Lencioni said, one of the greatest attributes of the team is vulnerability. Well, being vulnerable around people that you talk to every day, face to face, is a whole lot easier than working on a project and putting stuff into a document and admitting that you don't know something. And so what kills companies is lack of speed. And so if somebody's afraid to say, I'm not sure how to handle this, then what they'll do is try to figure it out. And meanwhile, time goes by and we lose ground on the competition, or we get the deal, the proposal in late, or something else happens and we miss it. And so having vulnerability on a hybrid team is critical, and it takes a great leader to demonstrate that in order to create it.
And you're so right about speed, because speed is, speed kills, and as speed kills the competition, it does all the things that you maybe can't do. It can cover many, many deficiencies for sure.
What's the saying? Time kills deals.
That's right.
Right. It's like,
that's right.
I have more trust with you right after we talk than I will an hour after we talk.
Yeah, that's so true.
The trust just degrades. And it's not because either one of us did something wrong. It's because our memory fades, new priorities pop in, maybe a competitor gets our ear. And so how do we maximize speed in a hybrid place? Well, vulnerability has got to be a key attribute, which means that we need a leader who's really focused on growth and celebrates it. Like, you should, every time somebody says, hey, I went to the meeting, I listened to the call recording again, and I still don't get the assignment, help me. Right. I mean, that should be like a big hug and a high five that somebody asked that question. Your team needs to know that is your favorite question, right? Because if they don't ask that, it means they're going to be stuck in paralysis of analysis and not do anything, or they're going to guess, which probably isn't good.
Well, Tom, let's pivot for a second. We just got off talking about leadership development. Let's move into sales skills and sales development, and that mindset. The famous quote that your father had said was that you can have everything in life you want if you help enough people get what they want in life. And that is obviously more relevant in sales than probably anything else, right? Service might be the other one that sales, in my opinion, is service. But think about that for a second, ponder that situation. The mindset shifts that someone translates from being a reluctant salesperson to a high performance salesperson. What has to happen there? As you talk about translating and transitioning from in person to virtual. How does that work in sales?
The first thing that most people deal with is they're not a proud salesman. I mean, it's just a mindset thing, because their initial impression of, back in the day, the telemarketer used to interrupt dinner and everybody be mad, right? Right. Or you go buy a used car and you get that image. Mm-hmm. And so people see salespeople as intrusive or greedy, or I can't really trust them, and all these different things. And dad used to say that people don't like being sold, but they love help buying.
Yeah. How true is that?
Right. And so really our mindset, and this is funny, but I was born February 1st, 1965 in Columbia, South Carolina. And on February 2nd, 1965, Dad put a birth announcement in the Columbia newspaper, and it said, John Thomas Ziegler, a born salesperson. Actually, I think it said a born salesman, February 1st, 1965. So he had such pride and clarity on what it means to sell. And if you have something that could prevent someone future harm, you have a moral obligation to sell it. Think about that. If you have a product or service, and so in Hebrew, and I don't speak Hebrew, but I study words, and there's a couple of words for selling in Hebrew. One of them is a simple transaction, doesn't really mean that much. The other one has a high moral meaning, because each letter in Hebrew has a numerical value, and some words have a lot of moral standing compared to others. But in Hebrew, the word for selling or sale that has the high moral value, it means, this is what it means. It means looking into someone's future, anticipating a problem they might have, and then helping them to avoid it. Now tell me if that's not the most moral thing you can do in life.
Without a doubt.
Right? Is that not? Okay, so that's my mindset. So as a sales professional, I'm only going to represent a product or service that helps somebody avoid a problem in their future life, that takes a future pain away or lessens it or mitigates it or puts them on a path to something better. If that's what I'm offering, I got a moral obligation to go sell it.
Yeah.
And so now the question is what I'm offering a fit for you? And you're going to buy it for your reasons. And so I need to ask the questions that give you the clarity to say, yeah, this is a fit for me. This is what I need. And so that's why when Dad said people love help buying, all we're doing is helping them answer the questions that are important to them by asking them that. So yeah, I love it. So the first thing is we got to change our mindset about who a salesperson is. And then we've got to be a professional in how we do the process, meaning we don't leave anything out. We cover every base.
Right.
And this is how you know a true professional. A true professional, when they meet with the ideal customer, that their product or service could have really helped, and they miss that sale, that true professional salesperson lays awake at night thinking, oh my goodness, what could I have done? Because the cost to them is so much greater than if they'd said yes, right? That's a true professional. How could I have upped my skill, up my listening, up my questions to get that person to come in? Because this is a life-changing thing we have.
Wow, I love it. How true is that? And around the misconceptions of sales is it's everywhere. We did a survey about our product and services to people and said, would you buy it? And that people said yes, no, or maybe. And then we asked if you'd sell it. And there was a high number of people that said no to selling. When we asked why, they said, because I'm not a salesperson. And it was very interesting about the mindset of how they view sales or how they view themselves and professionalism of sales. So how true is that? Tell me about the biggest misconceptions of sales skills, because sometimes they just say, oh, you're a natural born salesperson. You could sell ice to an Eskimo. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, selling is a learned skill. And I think it really starts with character and integrity and motive. And so if your motive is for the other person to win, right, to serve them in such a way that no matter what they do, whether they say yes or no, they have learned enough that they're going to be better off, right? You've set them up perfectly for what the right opportunity is for them, right? So your motive is no matter what, they're going to win, right? If they say yes, no, or wait, right, they're going to win. And so that comes out of character and integrity. So your motive has to be for them. And then asking all the questions so that your prospect says, you know what, I think they really understand me, right?
Yeah.
And because we only, at the end of the day, Dad said there's 5 reasons that people don't buy. No need, no want, no hurry, no money, and no trust.
Right.
Right. And the number one reason is trust. And so the first sale that we have to make is trust. And if we build trust in somebody over and over, then the day will come when the solution that we have will be a match, and it'll be yes, right? It'll be just like, boom.
Right.
So
that's fantastic. I'm going to use those 5 reasons why people don't buy, because that's very true. I've been in sales now for almost 30 years, and I have found that to be very true. I haven't said that way, but absolutely true. Absolutely true. I want to pivot for a second about generations. I'm a Gen Xer. All of my children are, my oldest is on the border of Gen Y and Gen Z, but my other 2 children are Gen Zs. And that seems to be a generation, the Gen Z, we'll just focus on that for a second. That seems to be one of the generations that almost hates selling but they always they love living on purpose. So when they're passionate about a purpose, boy, they'll tell that story as if the greatest salesperson in the world is on that passion. How do you how do you reframe people's thoughts on this in the generation about sales versus purpose? And because it seems like those are intricately connected.
They are. And in our leadership coaching, I'll kind of make the connection to sales is, we always ask somebody the first question in our 5-step process, what do you want? What does success look like to you? And so you ask any person of any age, they're going to have different answers to that because, right? And so in the younger generation, it's going to be about flexibility and friendship and a lot of the intangibles. And it's because they've watched people older than them, like, work nonstop their whole life and have nothing to show for it. They don't have relationships. They got poor health. And so why would I want to be like that? And then they come from a position where they don't really understand what selling is. And they do it all day.
Right.
They do it all day. They just don't do it. So we ask people, what does success look like to you? And then the second question is, well, why do you want that? Why is that important? And so we get to their why. And so the younger people are they're much more focused on the why and the purpose. And so then the follow-up question is, do you want to bring your friends with you?
Yeah. Everyone would say yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, well, then we got to represent something that speaks to your why and your purpose. And what's interesting, one of my friends and mentors, Rabbi Daniel Lappin, says that, when we solve a problem, we're often rewarded with a certificate of appreciation. We call that money.
Yeah.
And the more problems we solve, the more certificates of appreciation we receive.
Love it.
Now, he's an Orthodox rabbi. And so watch this final statement. He says, God is never happier with his children than when they're solving the problems of his other children.
Love it.
And so
true.
Whatever age and whatever you do, if you're truly solving the problems of other people, the certificates of appreciation are going to come.
Right.
And if your product or service can change somebody's life, then you have the moral responsibility to be as effective as you can be at that. And it has to be on an integrity foundation. As soon as they're not a fit, if there's a better product for them or they're not right or the timing's not right, and a salesperson of integrity, changes the direction of that relationship.
Tom, your comments there, I don't think you will know the impact of what it has to me, because in my moment in time in our business and personal life, it has a ton of weight and meaning. So as we build our relationship together, I will share as that journey, as what you said, plant seeds of fruit in my life. You and I have had some other discussions before this call about the things that our company does. And what we do, I happen to be privileged to run an organization that is focused on helping people become more financially healthy, physically fit, and having a lifestyle to enjoy those two. And as you're talking about leadership and sales skills, and then you're working with leaders of organizations as well, I find that several companies and even business leaders, period, neglect this one part of people's lives. They spend all of their lives going after this certificate of appreciation of which you just talked about, but they forget about one of the greatest gifts of any person's life is to present their bodies as what they call a tool to function in life, to deliver the highest level of service to people, and that's their health. And it's usually the last thing that's actually put attention to, and it's the first thing neglected. I'm young, I have time, etc. Overwhelmingly, there is a connection between wealth and health. It's undeniable. So my question to you is, as you've done this several times, how do you see the connection to physical health and leadership effectiveness in an organization?
Yeah. So number one is the first sale you make is yourself. So people are buying you. And so our physical health is really important. And I'm going to go up even 50,000 feet, and I'm going to go kind of an umbrella question. Whether you're a parent or not, just I want you to put yourself as a parent. Do you want your kids to have the best chance for success?
Unequivocally, yes.
Yeah. Would you intentionally do anything that would diminish their chance for success?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Well, this is a great question. And everybody who listen to this, you can go put this in Chat GPT. Ask it, what would the return on investment be if every public school from K through 12 fed breakfast, lunch, and a snack to every student that was whole foods, non-processed based, no ultra processed? What would happen? And depending on the way you phrase that, the ROI will be anywhere from 7 to 15 times to 1. And then you ask it, well, why? And they say, well, IQ will go up, grade point average will go up, college acceptance will go up, long-term medical costs will go significantly down, behavior problems go down, bullying goes down, ADHD, all these different things. All the behaviors that are related to the food that we consume will go down. And this is all, you can ask it for the studies and the background and everything else.
Wow.
So if we're talking about health, I believe that our physical health either caps or unleashes our potential.
And give an example of that.
Well, let's just say you're eating the SAD diet, standard American diet, 60+% ultra processed, a lot of carbs, and not a lot of nutrition in it, and you're not exercising. Your brain doesn't work as well, right? It just doesn't. We've all had the low spot in the day. We're like, oh man, so what do we get? We get the Coke and we get the Twinkie, and we got a 20-minute spurt, and then we're worse, right? I mean, it's just that thing.
Right. And
so what's the greatest thing that we have that will allow us to be successful in every area of life? It's our thinking. It's our ability for our brain to do what God designed it to do. And so when we put toxins in, we actually cap our ability to be creative. And so there's geniuses who are in terrible shape. Yeah, but they're still capped. What could they be, right? And so that's what I mean. And then, we have the Ziegler wheel of life. There's 7 spokes on the wheel. And I teach it in a program and we go through the spokes sequentially in a very specific order. The mental, which is my thinking, what I choose to do. Then the spiritual, which is our faith and virtues and values and what we believe in. And then the third is physical. And then the fourth is family. And then we go financial, personal, and career. And career is last. But it's interesting because we go into the world and we got a rent payment and a car payment. And so we put all of our energy in the career.
Yep.
And we neglect those other 6. Now, the first 3, mental, spiritual, and physical, those are things we got to work on every single day.
Right.
It's like bathing, right? You got to do it every single day, right? And then family is the next one, because in order to lead our family, we've got to have we got to lead with the right example so we can give them the right influence. Yeah. So if we're taking care of ourselves mentally, spiritually, and physically, then we can lead our family. And then we go financial, and that's where the dreams start coming out, right? This is the inspiring mode. This is the thing that drives us, that makes us want to, go to that next level. And then we go personal, and that's the hobbies and things that enrich us. And then we go to the career. Well, what's the vehicle that's going to allow me to do those things? We had the number one issue facing large business today, like let's say the Fortune, 10,000 companies. The number one issue is the mental health and well-being of their people.
Wow.
Time off, people depressed, people on all kinds of drugs, people just burning out. And so here's the question. if mentally you were strong, right? You woke up with a great attitude, you went to bed at night, you had a great night's sleep. So spiritually, you don't know what the future holds, but you have faith that it's going to work out. You've got hope, right? You've got that peace of mind. Physically, you're working out, you're eating right, you're getting enough sleep, you're handling stress. Your family's your rock. They're there for you. You can come home and unload if you need to. And hey, I need some help, or I just had a hard day. You get the hug. And then financially, man, you've got clear-cut goals. You're not there yet, but you're making progress, right? Every dollar knows where it's supposed to go. And then you've got things that just fill your soul, and you schedule them. And then your career. So if those first 6 things are great, but work is going tough and it's hard and it's a season where you got to put in extra time. If those first 6 things are solid, are you going to burn out? No. But I tell you what, if work gets hard, the market changes, if people are waiting and seeing, and you got a physical problem and things aren't fun at the house and your mindset's in the dumper, you're burned, right? You don't have it. And so that's why the priority is this. And so when we hire people in a business, what's the first thing we teach them? We teach them the job skills.
Right.
Right. And then the next thing is we tell them this is how much effort it's going to take. We give them the work to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they struggle, we hit them over the head about their attitude. What if we reverse that? What if everything about bringing somebody on was creating the right attitude and mindset? Well, guess what? If I have the right attitude and mindset and the right goals and where I want to go, then you're not going to have to tell me the effort. You're not going to have to force me to learn the skills. I'm just going to do it. And so we get work backwards in two different ways, right? We start off young, we focus on the career. And so going back to the young person Gen Z thing is, think about it. If they grew up on a smartphone, social media, they have hundreds of thousands of more input than we did at the same age. And so they're really good at reading a mask. And so I do a lot of work with leaders, and the common question is, these young people, they're so entitled, they're so hard to lead. What's the deal with them? And I flip it and I say, no, they expect more because they can tell a mask from a mile away because of their input. So when you earn their trust, then they jump in, right? But you got
and they're all in. You're right. They're all in when they're
all in. And they want all their friends.
Yeah.
Nothing more powerful than a 20-something all in, living their life on purpose for, their friends want that. Well, why would we come with you? Because these people are real. Right.
So that's a powerful statement there. It's exactly right. I never thought of it as masks because you're right. They can see miles. So take it from a corporation standpoint. What are the things missing from a company or from a team that usually that you're working with that is missing this health part or this authenticity part?
Yeah. There's a Zig Ziglar quote that's very foundational. And he said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. And so we've historically tried to compartmentalize work where we don't talk about family. We don't talk about faith. We were talking about health, and then it became taboo to talk about health, and now it's okay to talk about health. I mean, there's all these things, but that's all out the window because we're in a relationship business. And so I want to build a relationship with you. And so it's going to be natural over time that I learn about your family. I learn about your faith. I learn about, the health wins and struggles, all these different things. And as a coach leader, we have to provide, I believe, a runway, a structure for people to get help where they need it. It doesn't mean that you have to be an expert. Like, I'm not a marriage counselor and I will never do that.
Yeah.
But I've had people on my team come to me struggling with that, and I just introduce them to somebody who's an expert at that, right? Because
Yeah.
I care about them. I want the best for them. Same with physical health. I'm much more knowledgeable about physical health and what we need to do to maximize our performance physically and live the life that we want. And so I share that all the time. But at the end of the day, I'm like, you need to find a doctor who looks at it from this lens and get your real medical advice from them. But in the meantime, I'm going to tell you 20 things that will only make your life better. Right?
Right.
Because I like that, right? That's what I love. But if we're not willing to pour into people at these levels, then we're missing the greatest thing of all, which is relationship. There's a turning point when this is where the turning point for leaders is. A lot of leaders, they go through their career thinking it's about the business and how do I think about the business and what do I do? And then something happens and they realize, no, it's about the people in my business. And when I start pouring into my people, the business will take care of itself. And that's true. It doesn't mean you abdicate responsibility for goals and direction and vision and all the things that leaders need to do. It just means that, hey, I want to get everybody across the finish line healthier than when we started in every area of their life. And then we can stay up and have a party and enjoy it. Right?
Yeah. 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 This is bigger than a bread box. So I'd like to, spend our remaining time talking about this area, especially with health and performance and things of that sort. I find it interesting. Our organization has that saying is that, financial fitness, physical fitness, lifestyle to enjoy it. But the background of it is you can have all the money in the world and no health. You really have nothing. And I know several people that have worked their whole life to build wealth, and they neglected their health, and then they died early, or they were incapacitated and can't do the things that they'd like to do. And I've seen the other side is that they're extremely healthy and physically fit, but they haven't done anything really to grow their finances. I call it, you have all the money, all the health in the world, no money. You really have no fun. You want to have both to have the lifestyle you want. But I find it interesting is that nobody can do your push-ups for you. And that's one of the things I loved about Jim Rohn when he said, nobody can do your push-ups for you. You have to do it yourself. My father actually had a saying that says everybody has to pull their own wagon. You have to. And that has no closer meaning than health. I would be interested to hear your thought process about, and since we've had other conversations about this, you spend a lot of time with leaders and organizations, and sometimes they don't see the connection between someone's health, real physical health, and their mental health to the productivity of their organizations. And it's actually everywhere. There's studies everywhere, and you mentioned that. How do you help people start to think about the way that they perform has a direct connection to their health and the things that they're doing for their health?
I love the Gallup organization and the studies they do. And one of the studies they do every year, internally we call it the zombie study, but the study is actually the engagement study. And so they do a study and they survey tens and tens of thousands of employees, and they're trying to measure their engagement. Okay. So an engaged employee is somebody who gets there a little early. They stay, a little late. If somebody has a problem, they volunteer to help. When something new is coming up to try, they volunteer. They're all for it.
Yeah.
And they're really about serving everybody else on the team and their customers. And they're getting a lot of joy out of it. Well, only about 32% of people in the United States that are working are engaged.
Wow.
Think about that. So just over 50% are what at Ziegler, we call them zombies. But in the real world, they call them disengaged. So 51% are disengaged. What does that mean? It means that they show up about on time. They leave about on time. They do the minimum to keep their job, whatever that is. and they just keep to themselves. If you think about a bicycle, think of about a bike with 10 seater bike, right? So imagine this bicycle's got 10 seats. And so now you've got 3 people at the front and they're pedaling like crazy. And then the next 5 people on the bike are the zombies. And their feet are on the pedals, but they're not pushing. Right? They're just going through the motions. And then the last 2 seats on the bike, it's between 18 and 20% every year. These are what their term is actively disengaged. I call them the biters. Okay. So being a zombie, it's a brain disease. Okay. So these people are out there biting their coworkers, causing dissension, telling everybody how bad it is. It's like having the veteran salesperson on the team who's got a terrible attitude, and leadership comes out with a new plan, and that salesperson goes, that'll never work. Y'all go ahead. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. Okay. And so they're infectious. They are terrible. And so what causes a zombie? Why don't zombies care? They don't care because they have no dreams.
No dreams.
No dreams. And so these are 4 powerful words that a leader needs to put into play. The first word is vision. People want to be involved in something bigger than themselves that makes a difference, that changes the world, that gives their life meaning and value. And so as a leader, I got to paint the vision of what we're doing, how we're changing the world, because that gives meaning to me. Okay. So all of a sudden my heart's racing a little bit more. Wait a second. They want me here. That means I matter. That means I'm making a difference. And then that vision needs to be packaged with hope. The hope that my life can be better, that personally I can have the lifestyle I want. I can provide for my family. I can get in better health. I can have the financial resources to live abundantly into my hundreds, because that's how long we're designed to live.
Right.
And so I'm packaging and I'm sharing and I'm representing this vision with this hope, and then trust. If I don't have trust in the team and the leaders and what we're doing, then it's going to cloud those 2 things. I'm going to lose confidence. And then the last one is belief. And that belief is, this is what we talked about earlier. AI will never believe in you. A leader has to transfer their belief into people. As somebody who's growing on the team and not there yet, breaking boundaries I didn't know I could, I need somebody who has more confidence in me than I have in myself to help me do it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so now let's look at that. So we got 70% who are either disengaged or actively disengaged. How many of those are in that situation because they feel terrible?
A high number.
Well, just look at obesity rates, look at diabetic rates, look at all these different things that we've got going on. Tell me a diabetic feels as good as somebody who's healthy. There's no way. And so a lot of people, they are at their wits' end, not because they don't want to be engaged, but because they are on a roller coaster of despair, and everything they try makes them feel worse. And so the only thing that gets them through the next hour is a highly processed meal with terrible carbs and chemicals. Right? And then they crash at night. They don't have any time to dream. They feel terrible.
Right.
And so it's interesting how if we show somebody how they can take control of their health, and they start eating in a way that feeds their mitochondria, that really gives them the fuel they need, and some of those toxins start going out, and their inflammation resides, and they have more energy, and they start doing some daily movement. And then all of a sudden they get a buddy who's doing it, and they're holding each other accountable, they're lifting each other up. And without anybody saying anything, their engagement goes up because they just have the capacity to do it. So that's how health and engagement go hand in hand. And it's more than $1 trillion problem just in the United States. When you look at the lost productivity from the disengaged people in our organizations.
That's so true. So tell me what you think on our side, because we're a financial company and we do these things. What are the financial wake-up calls that you're seen from organizations that people need to take a much closer look or pay attention to their physical fitness or their health?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things. They say genetically we're designed to live 120 years. And then they're saying the advancement of AI and technologies that if we can live 5 more years, it'll be our choice whether we don't live to 120 because they'll be able to go in and fix stuff.
Right.
Well, go ask the average 60-year-old, 70-year-old, do you want to live to 120? And their answer is going to be no, because I feel terrible.
Right. That's the truth.
Yeah. But that's a choice, right? You can reverse so much. You can change how you eat and how you move and how you exercise. Well, now, if I could feel it, and so think about this. What if 100, the health and vibrancy that you had at 100 was the same as you had in your 30s? Well, then everybody wants to live to 100.
Right.
And what if all of a sudden in our 40s, we had another 80 years to create the life we want? Well, we're going to start because now we understand compound interest, but we don't feel like it's too late.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
So we can put it in. And so one of the things that's happening is people are waking up and, instead of how long we live, it's how healthy we live. Because I don't want lifespan, I want health span. And health span to me means that I enjoy every day. Right? It's not depending on a check hopefully from a benevolent government that has my best interest at heart to keep me going.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think more people are seeing that. The challenge is still the same. They don't know how, and so it's people like us that got to go in and show them how.
Right.
Show them how.
Yeah. So my journey has been a little interesting. I was a college athlete and had an opportunity to play at a pretty high level. And then I coach football. So again, you're with people that are operating at a pretty high level. And, I found myself in my late 40s. I was a little bit heavier than I wanted to be. And I was flirting with 260. I'm a big guy, so I carry the weight pretty well. And I realized that, gaining 2 pounds pretty much every year on a regular basis since I was in my late 20s. And all of a sudden now I'm in a position where you're exactly right. I feel terrible and things of that sort. And I don't want to move. I know I don't want to work out the same way that I did when I was a professional athlete, or an athlete or in a profession of sports. And all of a sudden you start thinking, it's not worth it. This is the way life is. And I will say that in 2020, when we started our company, I learned very quickly that baby steps turn to big steps. And COVID happened, and we started the company with incentivizing healthy living, and that incentivization gave you rewards and also gave you financial gains in your products and services. And all of a sudden, our company took off. But then COVID happened. So if you weren't concerned about your health when COVID happened, you were never going to be concerned about your health. And so I just started to walk. I didn't really want to go to the gym and lift heavy weights and all those things. And I will tell you now, fast forward to today, I'm 5 years into this now. I'm literally 40 pounds lighter. I'm in probably the best shape of my life, bar none to the physical 20 years old in college football. I'm not that same guy, but I sure as heck, I wake up with the same aches and pains in backs and knees and things of that sort. I think that just comes with a little bit of old age. But I sure as hell feel a lot better than I did 5 years ago when I was a little bit overweight. I wasn't as physically fit. I wasn't as mobile. And more importantly, I didn't have a health mindset. So I'd be curious, in your journey, you said that you've gone through a similar journey in that, and there's obviously other people that have done it too, and you've seen it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So 3 years ago in April, so a little over 3 years ago, like a lot of people, I found the COVID 20, right? So I'd put on an extra 20 when COVID started. And I've always been the husky guy. Like I was the biggest kid in third grade, and so I've always carried an extra 20 or 30 pounds my whole life. And so suddenly I'm like, well, this isn't good. So I set a goal. So 3 years ago, I said, I'm going to work out every day. And I want to share this because it's actually a great process for anybody to set any goal. And there is a power in a streak. If you know anybody who's done a streak for more than 90 days, it becomes who they are, and they just can't psychologically miss a day, right? It just becomes that. So my goal was I want to work out every single day. And so then I had to define, what does a workout mean?
Right.
And so for me, I defined a workout as 30 minutes of intentional movement that doesn't have to be in a row. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, I travel, like I go international and all that stuff. Well, if working out means I got to go to the gym or lift a certain weight, it's not going to happen. So 30 minutes of intentional movement, that could be walking, elliptical, bike, weights, stretch bands, stretching. It could be, yoga. It could be anything, but it's intentional movement. Doesn't have to be in a row. I've had connecting flights, traveled 24 hours, and done 20 minutes each time I get off the plane, dragging a suitcase around the airport. That's intentional movement. So I came up with that. And then I said, what's my excuse? Because we got to figure out, this is a big deal. What are you willing? What's the excuse to not do it? So I could only come up with one excuse, and that was doctor's orders. You tell me how anybody can't get 30 minutes of intentional movement in every day. I go out on my walks and I make my phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
We all have it. April 30th, 2022, I started to work out. So now my streak is 1,100 and something days in a row.
That's awesome.
Okay. Well, then I go to a conference speaking out in Reno at a conference, and there was a guy there who was also speaking. His name is Dr. Philip Ovadia. He wrote a book called "Stay Off My Operating Table." So he's a heart surgeon. He holds your heart in his hands, and he gives me his book, and I said, awesome. So we became friends. I read his book in one sitting. And he starts the book off with a surgery on a 38, 39-year-old woman, 13 hours, open heart surgery. And he loses her on the table. She dies. And he walks out and he's like, that should have never happened. That was a complete lifestyle decision that she made. She was morbidly obese, diabetic, had every complication you can have. And then he said, I looked in the mirror and I was 100 pounds overweight. So I'm a surgeon fixing hearts, and I'm 100 pounds overweight. So he goes on this journey to find out what is health. And so he's settled on the definition called metabolic wellness, which is, anybody can look it up. It's really simple. And he talks about his path. So based on that, I decided to go ketogenic, whole foods, nothing processed. And since I started that, I've lost, I was about 225 and now I'm 170.
That's fantastic.
Okay. So, but there's two other goals that I set in this journey, because this cracks me up. My workout goal, one of my goals written down was I will never be sore. So I incrementally increased reps, weight, speed, whatever, but never to be sore. Why? I'm doing this the rest of my life.
Right.
And then I lose over 50 pounds. My goal was I will never be hungry, because if you eat whole foods, keto, you can eat so much food. It's unbelievable. And you miss a meal, you don't even know it. This hunger signals, everything changes. Was that hard? The first 2 or 3 months, I was never hungry. Psychologically, I wanted the cheesecake, right? I wanted the chips. But now, 2.5 years into that, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The energy increase, my blood work. I've got a functional medicine doctor. We go through, once a year, 90 minutes, or twice a year, 90 minutes on all my stuff. And this is a pro tip. Let your blood work be your guide, and find a doctor who understands this. Because when you start getting educated on it, what's promoted in the media and what's the truth are two different things. But there's something that never lies to you, and that's your blood work. So, you may not be able to eat exactly the same combination that I eat, right? It might not be as good for you as it is for me.
Right.
That's why you get a doctor who specializes in functional medicine, who understands blood work. So that was
Yeah.
my journey. So being and by the way, did I know how to do all this? Yeah, I grew up on this.
Right. Right.
but but knowing it and believing it and doing it, those are three different things, right?
How true is that? If I can, want to bring up one final point, but the story, there's two things that you said that really resonated. The first one is, um, our company, I believe, is the only financial company that truly incentivizes healthy living across the board in everything we do. It is our DNA. When clients come on in and they become part of our organization and they invest in our insurance and investment products, they usually lose 20 pounds. They usually lower their cholesterol and they usually lower their blood pressure. And there's rare exceptions that it doesn't happen, but when people are participating, that almost always happens. And it becomes a lifestyle change to that point. And one of the things that we have a partnering company with Vitality, and they had tested what you had said, this intentional movement. And a lot of people do physical activities in their work, but they don't look at it as anything other than, oh, I got to do this work. So they went to the people that were doing the service of each rooms in hotels. They gave them this reward because that many of our clients have the reward system. As they do more things, they get points, just like a frequent flyer mile system. And so they gave them this program and said, as you do more activities, you get these rewards, financial rewards. There's other types of rewards, recognition, things of that sort. And what they found is that the people that were doing the room service, their productivity went up. They were more happy, and they were all gamified by their health through their work. So they didn't have to go to a gym or anything. They just took a little bit more intention to what they were doing and more energy directed to it. So that was a game changer. And to that point, this is kind of where I want to end this conversation, where your thoughts of this, because you've been around success in every level. And I being an athlete and I'm familiar with health. Many people have been around finance and they're familiar with finance. They listen to financial things, or they listen to health things, or they read books, but they don't pay attention to the mastery of it. And I have found that familiarity leads to mediocrity. It's the dedication to mastery that does it. Even if it's baby steps, as I said, baby steps leads to big steps. You could very easily say, yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, my dad used to talk about it. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I've read those books. But you've taken another direction and you've tried to master it, and even including in your health. I totally believe what you just said is that there are certain things that give you a pathway to success. I'd like you to comment on that word familiarity versus mastery. And what would that mean to you? And what would you be able to tell someone that's listening to this about the differentiation of those two things?
Yeah. So I'm going to use a study out of the book, The Expectation Effect. A great book. And I have my own quote is, we harvest our expectations. So here's the study. In Thailand, they have low iron in the population because the soil and the food they eat doesn't have a lot of iron in it. So if you go and do a blood test, you'll see anemia or low iron. So they took two groups of people and they made them a traditional Thai meal, both of them, same traditional Thai meal. So one of them, they put the curry, the rice, the vegetables, they put it into a blender. They added the iron supplement. They blended it up to where it looked like baby food, and they said, eat this. The other, they brought them in and they sat them down. They fed them this beautiful Thai meal, and they sprinkled the same amount of iron on top of the meal. And 30 days into it, there was no change in the iron level in the people who ate the baby food. But the people who ate the beautiful meal with the same amount of iron in it, their iron rates were going way up. The expectation is baby food is yuck. And the ghrelin and the things that get released in the brain for digestion, it's actually a neurologic effect. It just passed through the system. Our body's not going to absorb it, and it's done. And so familiarity is like eating baby food. I don't believe it. It doesn't make any sense. And even if I try it, it won't work, right? Your mind, your subconscious actually goes to work to get it through.
Right.
Now, this was a beautiful meal, and I'm going to enjoy this. And it's got a supplement in it too. This is unbelievable. And so that's mastery. Okay. And so the difference in the two is, remember those 4 words: vision, hope, trust, belief.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm out representing your company and you can help somebody create a vision for the future they want to have, and you give them the hope of a plan to get there, and you've got this credibility of the market and all these other people who've already done it, and the support that comes with it, and I believe you can do it, well, they're gonna start implementing these things, thinking they're eating the beautiful Thai meal instead of the baby food mush.
Right.
Right. And so the little baby steps to mastery hinge on those 4 words: vision, hope, trust, and belief.
That's fantastic. I always ask this last question is, Tom, what's a question that you wish people would ask you and they don't?
Can I have you back? Can we do more?
Well, we will definitely be working on that, my friend, to have you back.
Yeah. So that's tongue in cheek. You know, I'm kind of a nerd. I love the why behind the why. I really love seeing light bulbs go off, followed by action, right? Because I used to joke, we put on a lot of seminars, and I came up with the ultimate seminar title that we could sell: Success the Easy Way. In 5 minutes or less, guaranteed, or double your money back. I mean, everybody's going to that, right?
That's right. That's right.
But that's not life. And so the big question is how do you share with people what they need to hear in a way they need to hear it so that they take action? And that's what we do. That's what our coaching does. That's how we work with individuals and corporations, is reframing that. Because if somebody's in it, if they're bought into the vision, they have hope that they can become the person God created them to become, and there's a plan to get there, and they trust the people who built it, and there's people around them who support them and believe in them, man, that's like an unstoppable thing, because we're all going to have a bad day. Right. We're all. So, yeah. So that's the big question. How do we make this sustain? How do we keep this going?
That's great. That's great. Well, Tom, thank you for the time and investing words of wisdom into our viewers and listeners. And how can people get in touch with you? Is there a website or some way that they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, there's 2 ways. You can go to Ziglar.com, and that's everything Ziegler in our business. We also have a YouTube channel called the Ziglar Coaching Academy, which is absolutely free. And we help leaders and individuals coach themselves and coach others to be more successful. You learn all the tips and techniques and skills there. So either one of those places is great.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. And again, Tom, thank you for your time and your wisdom.